Thank you everybody for joining. I guess maybe we're at about 2 minutes in, so maybe I will get things kicked off. Okay, can everybody see the slides okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everybody and Happy New Year. This is our first Ask NPSMA session for 2023. And this is really a follow-up session to what we did in November at the conference and what we talked about in December, but it's not meant to be something that if you didn't go to one of those, you're still more than welcome, and we will. It won't be cumulative in the sense that everybody will be able to participate. So thank you all for coming. Just a couple things first. For planning, we don't have. I don't think we have the theme for the conference yet. Unless Seema, do you have you might have some thoughts on that. But in terms of dates, we do. So we have November 1st through November 4th is the plan for our 2023 annual meeting, which will be in Tampa. And here's the website, but there's no details yet. Really, it's more of a hold the date and know where it will be. So we hope that you can join us for that. And this is, like I mentioned before, a follow-up from our 2022 conference that we had in November in San Diego, where the theme was the past 25 and the next 25 years. In terms of NPSMA keeping current, you can look for announcements and information in the monthly PSM news. So if you don't subscribe to that, you can email me, and we'll get you added to the email newsletter. You can also read our publication, The Innovator, where you can read about best practices. It's our peer-reviewed e-publication. And you can also feature your PSM alumni and graduates in the Chronicle. And Dagmar is the person to contact if you're interested in that. Here is her email address. If you're interested in getting involved in any committees for the NPSMA, please reach out to really anybody on the board, but you can reach out to me. I'm happy to talk with you about that. And we strongly encourage you, if you aren't now, to become a member. Here are some of our membership benefits. We have reduced rates to the national meeting, opportunities for PSM students to present at the annual conferences. We had some very nice student presentations in November 2022. We have a close relationship with the Council of Graduate Schools. And case in point, we have monthly Ask NPSMA webinars where we can discuss topics of interest. And you can also see old Ask NPSMA recordings on YouTube. We have PSM-focused virtual recruitment fairs, and we also have the Slack channel where you can join our network of program directors. We also have a presence on social media, so Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And that takes us to the topics for today. So Megan, I think, just joined us. Hi, Megan. So Megan is at the University of Utah. I'm at WPI, and we work together in presenting a mental health workshop in November. And we talked about a lot of follow-up, again, as I mentioned earlier, in December, and now this is kind of the wrap-up session about that. But Megan, you joined just in time, because I think this is actually an exercise that you like to use in your classes. And so Megan likes to do this as a self-check-in. And so this is a two-dimensional plot where you have energy on the vertical axis, and then I think, well, how would you describe the horizontal axis, Megan?
I can't remember what it is. Energy.
Yeah, despair. Yeah, so it kind of goes, I guess, I'm not sure how I would define that axis.
Mood, perhaps?
Maybe
Yeah, mood is a good one, Terry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Terry.
Sure.
And I think, Megan, so you like to present this to your class at the beginning, right? And how is everybody feeling?
I can jump in real quick. Yeah, so this is just one of those easy ways to talk about how we're feeling in our classes that are generally, very heavy in the STEM and the analytics, but also as a really quick way just to do self-awareness, which is that first step in emotional intelligence. It's that first step in becoming aware of how you're feeling, and that then can lead to the other ways to do self-identification and to identify when you are having a mental crisis or a mental health issue. It only takes a couple minutes. Sometimes if it's a small class, I go around and ask if anyone would like to share. Other times I just ask for them to take a moment and see if they can actually put a label to an emotion that they are feeling in that moment. And that's about, so that's my icebreaker. Scientists do also like that it's on a XY plot, so they can also get a little fun in a different way, but also using that kind of like, again, speaking to our audience on that data centered style.
Cool. Thank you, Megan. I'm also happy to report that I think this morning I was in the frustrated box, but I am now, I think, in the enthusiastic box. It's been a nice trajectory for the day. So the objectives for this session, really to follow up and discuss the action items from the last Ask NPSMA session in December, and to discuss challenges, both with those and some things we listed as challenges last time, to build a mental health resource wish list. So that's kind of an action item that that Megan and I are planning to make for NPSMA to have available to all of our members. And then we also want to talk about potential topics for the Ask NPSMA sessions this year. So a quick recap, we had our presentation, our workshop in November in San Diego about identifying and incorporating mental health awareness into PSM programs. So Megan and I worked closely with Denise Egan-Stack, a licensed mental health care professional. And these are some of her slides. So maybe just a quick recap, because we've seen this, some of us have seen this a few times, but Denise really summarized nicely with statistics about how graduate students, in particular in STEM disciplines, are at high risk. And COVID really did exacerbate the problem. And why do we care? Well, poor mental health among graduate students can lead to lots of adverse issues like lower productivity, lower academic performance, dropping out, low levels of satisfaction, negative impacts on personal lives. And faculty are noticing this too. So 21% of faculty reported that supporting students in distress has taken a toll on them as faculty members. We talked about how to bring it up. So there are lots of different things you can do in terms of having a conversation with the student, talking about resources available, lots of different actions that you can take. We discussed what to do at the faculty level, and some of this will come up today, like things to do in your classroom environment, like actually Megan's example just a few minutes ago, mental health statements on a syllabus. How do you word your syllabus? How can you be flexible in your policies? How can you be transparent about that? And we talked about what you can do at department or program levels with things like community building, trainings, surveys, mentorship, this type of stuff. So these were a lot of ideas that we had discussed. And this is, I think, going to be our first platform for our first task. So from December 2020, we talked about as a group, what are some easy, that may have been, we'll see if any of these were in fact easy. So easy or quickly achievable mental health challenges that you can make. And this all came from a whiteboard. So people were sharing all different ideas to go through some of them to create a mental health statement to incorporate into a syllabus. So some people were doing that. Some people were thinking about implementing that. At Jefferson, so Jerry had a list of great ideas. So utilizing programs like mental health first aid training, establishing central resources like the Red Folder program, establishing behavioral intervention teams, clarifying faculty staff boundaries, engagement of PSM programs within institution, and with administrative support offices and staff. Some suggested giving a presentation about mental health to faculty, spell out flexibility policies in courses, have a list of resources available on campus for help, have more events, increase low stakes assignments, encourage student association, organize follow-up sessions or on mental health at a department retreat, include a self-reflection section on a course, invite students to icebreakers, meet and greets, address mental health periodically throughout the semester, arrange for a visit with university therapy dog. The dog thing was very, very popular. And use the send later option for emails sent after hours. So these were some of the things that were suggested. And I think we can now think about this as a call to action, and we can all share our experiences and just brainstorm about this. So let's open the floor up, and we'll come back to the slides, but let's open up the floor. Would anyone like to share things that you tried or things that you are trying this semester, now that we are probably, most of us are at least a week or two into the spring semester? So with that, I'll open the floor. Anybody want to jump in with something you've tried or something you're thinking about trying?
Marcel, may I suggest that people put their university affiliations next to their name? Because I noticed there are a few of us who are new here. I know Jackie's here from Temple, but I also don't know a couple other names. So I see Terry's already been proactive about that, but if you could just add our affiliation, that would help the discussion.
Good idea.
Excuse me, Marcel, the last comment you on your slide, send later. What does that mean?
Oh, the send later?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was something that a colleague of mine told me about. And in most email clients, Outlook, Apple Mail, there is an option when you're writing an email where you can choose this send later function. So if you're writing an email at 11 p.m. to a student, and you don't necessarily want to add stress or anxiety to the student with them getting an email from their professor or their advisor at 11 p.m., you can set it to send automatically at, say, you pick a time like 7 in the morning. So you can still knock out your work emails at an odd hour if you're up for whatever reason, or if you're in a different time zone. And that was something that actually also Denise suggested in terms of, I think she called it modeling well-being. So if you are sending students emails at 11 at night or 1 o'clock in the morning, you're kind of showing them that you are not disconnecting from work, and you're probably letting invade into your own personal space a little bit too much. So that was a suggestion that I absolutely loved.
Okay.
So I actually have planned to use it. I haven't, because I've been a little bit better about not doing work at 11 o'clock at night so far this semester. So I haven't had to, but I think if I were burning the midnight oil, when that happens next, I will use that.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of things late at night. So, but anyway.
Yeah, I've used that. And to be honest, not just with students, with faculty and staff as well, for all the same reasons. And interestingly, recently, our enterprise CEO, meaning both health system and university, sent a sort of a global message to the entire community, essentially on this point about, these kinds of communications, about scheduling meetings at 4 or 5 o'clock on a Friday, really trying to set an ethos that gives us all a little physical and mental space. So it's I think we should think it's not just a student thing.
That's a great point.
Well, with regard to the save send or send later, I saw only one email so far in a response where the person said, "My working hours may not be your working hours, so please don't feel obliged to respond." I appreciate that, because Given that most of our master's programs are offering evening classes and students are asking us questions before their workday, some of them are working professionals, so they can't email us from 9 to 5. So they're usually emailing us, just before class or after class. So that's after hours anyway. And sometimes it's helpful for them to receive that response after hours. I'm okay replying, recognizing that need in students to reply, to respond to them as needed. In fact, I've even given them my cell phone number in the past where, look, if it's coming to add drop date and something crazy is happening, or there's a visa issue and you need my signature, feel free to. So I feel like I'm actually helping them by being responsive. And the way I bring balance to my life is that, there is a time in between where in the evening, where I'm either cooking or taking care of other duties that are not related to work, where I can, check out for a few hours and then check back in real quick just to make sure I'm meeting those needs. So I feel like, I would hate to have a blanket statement saying you should never respond to something at 8 or 9 at night, because sometimes that's the need. But I like that statement that person said, look, don't feel obliged to. I just happen to work at this time, which is, that really was relevant to me.
Yeah, another thing is to clarify that it's a work week, Monday through Friday, that weekends don't count. So that if the student, like I've had student email at like 5 o'clock on a Friday and be freaking out on Monday morning at 9 a.m. Why didn't I get back to them? So I like that's something I would have thought somebody understood, but saying that, I will, I have a policy that I try to turn around my emails every 2 days at least, unless it's an emergency, but that doesn't count like Saturday and Sunday. So being clear about that has helped a little bit.
That's a great idea. I do something similar now in my syllabi where I say students can expect an email response within 24 hours on a weekday, within 48 on a weekend. And one of the ways I learned that lesson was we had an annual meeting. At this point, it's probably, I would say 6 years ago, but it's probably 10, where in DC, someone gave a presentation about demographics and how the Gen Z is so much different than, the generations that we faculty and staff are from, and really talked about how, because of their cell phone being with them through most of their childhood, they're used to instant response, Snapchat, texting. And this was more focused on recruitment, but basically they were saying if someone doesn't respond to a student inquiry about a master's program within like a day, the probability of them being engaged drops substantially. But I think a lesson there is a lot of students are kind of conditioned to expect us to respond really quickly. And it's good to manage those expectations.
Marcel, I think you hit on a couple really good points there. First of all, Seema, I love that idea of my work hours may not be yours. Please don't feel obliged. I've had colleagues email me, 10, 11 at night with requests. So not students, but peers. And especially if it's one of my superiors, like, do I respond at 10:30 at night because it's my superior? And I love the idea of just adding that in there, makes it very clear, and it takes that weight off of me. So I know where I need to stand. But Marcel, kind of going into that is like, this is an opportunity to talk about it right up front within our syllabus. There's always going to be exceptions, right? Like they need a class code, something like Seema was saying, and a visa issue, a situation. And I hand out my cell phone, and it's only the real emergencies that students actually text me. I've never gotten a misuse of it if I'm clear in my policy. If I'm clear that these are the expectations, but if you truly need something, that's what we're here for. Like, we're here for support. And then I also am very open, and I've been trying to be a little bit more relatable with my students, which we have a lot of working professionals and families, or that have families. So I try to be kind of more relatable and saying, I too have a family at home, And so sometimes my time is divided, or often my time is divided between work and family life balance. I try to practice a work-life balance. I hope you do too. And then, so it's, it's hitting a lot of stones: policy, expectation, making connection. All of these are in that realm of mental health and how we can better model the behavior, but then also encourage behavior changes or feelings within our students as well. Was anyone able to do, for those who have been here a couple times for this series, was anyone able to incorporate any mental health discussion or changes? I know it feels like the last time we talked was December, and holidays eat up so much of our time. Was anyone able to make momentum or put plans in place for intentions this semester around these ideas? Or maybe you just have an idea right now, like what would you like to do this semester?
We added a mental health statement on our syllabi. And a lot of that is because NC State, like a lot of universities unfortunately had pretty publicized suicides this past semester, and then also now this current semester. We're only like 3 weeks in. And so the university has had a big push and a lot more attention to mental health initiatives. So in addition to what I learned at the conference, we've now, the university, I feel like, is all of a sudden like enlightened and awakened. And so they have created just these task force and are providing us a lot of resources and information to include on our syllabi.
I'm sorry to hear about that at your institution, as a way to get resources now known.
Yeah, it's, we also talked about, how the lack of counseling and whatnot, at various universities. And so my university has partnered with other universities in our systems where they now have virtual counseling available to our students in order to alleviate some of the backlog.
That's important. One lesson we learned at WPI, WPI just opened this wellness center that's getting quite a bit of nice press coverage, actually. And I think it's a great thing. But one of the lessons we learned as an institution is when things started to get bad, the wait time for a student to get an appointment at the counseling center was incredible. So those types of resources, having them actually available, a student being able to go in and get an appointment, today, is massively valuable.
Yeah.
I'll share one other story, since it's about resources. Our student counseling resources, they have this just really nice pamphlet with a QR code. And they came to one of our graduate director symposiums and said, here, this is what we offer. They offer like 12 free counsel services to begin with, and yada, yada. Anyway, I had a student, an international student, come in late last semester, and you could just see the weight on their face. Like something was off. This person is usually super bubbly, super energetic, and it's just, you could see it drain on his face. And I asked him, I go, are you okay? And he kind of blew me off. He goes, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And so I asked one more time, and he still blew me off. So we went on with our meeting, and we worked out some program stresses that he was having. And by the end, he looked better. So then I asked one more time, and I go, is everything okay? And that's when he actually opened up. And he's from China, and at that time, that's when they were having all that flooding. And it was right in his home village, in his hometown. And he hadn't been able to go back in 5 years because of COVID and the lockdown restrictions. And he's the oldest in his family, the firstborn son. So there's a lot of cultural undertones in there as well. And he just felt he didn't know what to do. He was overwhelmed. I'm not a clinician. I did not diagnose everything. I walked him to our pamphlet. We did the QR code together. We brought it up and we located on campus where the service was. He said, I'm going to go right now. I said, do you want me to go? And he goes, no, I got it. Thank you. I just met with him last week and unprovoked, I did not ask him. He goes, Megan, thank you so much for showing me that. You saved me. So little resources, like literally showing them how to do a QR code could have, made a difference for this one student. And that is something that is super low bar, super low hanging fruit that was really easy. So I encourage all of you to at least have the QR code somewhere that you can have your students point and figure out where to go to.
So one thing that I do is because I'm also in charge of academic integrity, academic progress, getting in touch with students when they're having academic challenges. And all those emails that I write to them, I do have a statement that basically says, actually Rutgers provided me, that says, this is a stressful time, this is a stressful situation, if you're looking for resources, blah, 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 and here's the link to get to it. And so, it's kind of like, at least for me, it's like standard operating procedure, that you have the link to the resources. So it's kind of what I do.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
And using those types of resources, being just basically versed in this kind of stuff can go such a long way. I mean, Megan, that's such an amazing story that you told. Learning about how to address these mental health issues can really make a difference in somebody's life. How about others? Does anybody else have anything that you've implemented or done or tried or will plan to try in the next couple of weeks?
I'm starting to try something new with my classes. Not just the mental health statement, but since I teach a lot of climate change components in my classes, water resource sustainability, I've been told is the most depressing class anybody has taken. But that was the first half before we actually get to innovations and options and opportunities to move forward. But with these classes, I have found that there's now resources out there. One of them, if anybody's in this field, there is a field guide to climate anxiety that I'm looking into incorporating into about 3 or 4 different classes. But it's something that I think will help out in many different aspects, not just the anxiety with climate change and this feeling of powerlessness that we can't deal with this huge issue. So I'm hoping that will help.
That's a really interesting sounding resource. I'm going to have to look this up.
So what about, at least, I don't know if it's this generation of students or this type of student, but they're very, very hooked into what grade they get, as opposed to learning the material and appreciating the learning process. And if they are not getting an A or 100, they get really, really anxious. And I've noticed that, and I don't know exactly how to convince them that it's okay if you get a B. A B is still a good grade. I don't know if it's a cultural thing, if it's just, I don't, I just want to know if anyone else has experienced that and what you've done about it.
Yeah, ironically, this morning I had a great appeal cross my desk. So your question is very timely, Beth. And yeah, some of it is within and some without our control. Yeah, I totally agree with you. We try to have a student see the big picture, the bigger context. Even if they have to technically end up repeating a course or delays something in their timeline. But the part that's out of our control, the case this morning was an example. This is what we call a TrackUp program that leads from one level to another level of study. which is very true in many professional fields. And, literally, some programs, I'm sure we're familiar with them, have very stringent progression requirements. And, I'm talking about flunking, getting a C in some core course can really throw you for a loop. So one thing I took away from this was, in discussion with our faculty, is to, engage in dialogue, not just with the student, but bigger picture with other programs that we interface with and that students track up to, and trying to figure out, we're not going to tell them to change their, curriculum requirements, but to just be cognizant of the impact of these things, and to maybe really make sure that the criteria that are set are, there for appropriate reasons. Now, some of it could be accreditation based, some of it is a little more under our control. So I think my point is that's a very real matter that you raised, and I think we can try to figure out what aspects of it are within our control. Some of it is student facing, but some of it is also institutional, with respect to how we do things. I remember it's medical school, not master's programs, but I remember historically going from literally numerical grades to decimal places where students were ranked, to a little less stringent, to literally ending up with a sort of pass-fail honors. And of course, the honors generated angst. So it almost became pass-fail. So I've seen an evolution from another one of our, educational realms, where they tried to figure out, what are these criteria really, what are they for, what do they mean, and trying to focus on, while not lowering standards or not providing some way, certainly, of assessing students' progress and qualifications, trying to remove any artificialities. What's the difference between a student? I have no idea what the difference is between a student who gets an 89 and a 91, as a final grade. But if you're going by a hard and fast, if your catalog says this is an aim, this is one grade and this is another grade, that's what it says. So thanks for bringing it up, but it literally was an experience today where, grade appeals are coming up. And I agree with you, it's more of we're in an environment where it's even more, right in front of us.
Beth, something along the lines of what you were saying, how some students really, they get heightened anxiety over whether they're getting an A or a B+. There's some institutional stuff that's out of our controls, right? Like our grad school, you have to have at least a 3.0 to graduate from our degree. I can't control that. But something that I can do within my courses is, and I believe Denise mentioned this even at the conference, is to be very explicit in your rubrics. So students know up front exactly what the expectations are. And again, thinking about our audience of students, how we also have an increased neurodiverse population within the STEM fields, the idea of presenting it as a checklist, as very explicit that they can go through and check off, can help to at least reduce that anxiety, reduce that stress that a lot of our students do. So that's something that I try to practice, but I know it's really hard when we're dealing with courses across campus that we're trying to advise to take, but we can't control how they are implemented within those settings.
Right. For some reason, they're under some students are under the impression that if they don't get straight A's, they won't get a job. And I tell them that that's not true. It's not true. But that's, I don't know. I'm just not clear where this is all coming from. But
Well, just keeping an eye on the time, another set of topics that we discussed in December to follow up on were the things that we found to be more challenging. So getting buy-in from students about mental health and well-being, having program-wide discussions, intervention. How do you reach out to a student who is unresponsive? using the university's counseling services, our care team, obtaining additional funding to support these initiatives, organizing a mental health event for faculty and staff, incorporating a BIT policy at the university level, bringing up mental health with students, having male faculty participate in as much as females, student meet and greets, student health insurance coverage for mental health services, getting more faculty buy-in. Sometimes colleagues are stubborn and resistant. These were some of the things that we listed as more challenging. And I think that this is also something that we can bring up to the floor. Are there things that people are thinking about right now that you find particularly challenging? Are there any things that you really would like to poll the group for thoughts and advice on?
Yeah, I'd like to ask about money. And I mean this from a student perspective, the saying money doesn't buy happiness. Well, I guess it depends. We are finding in this environment, getting lots of student feedback about inflation and about rent increases and about food insecurity at every level, and especially among our master students who are tuition paying students, granted some scholarships, but even among our doctoral students who are on stipends, but it's apparently not enough. And so it seems to have really accelerated. And so I just wondered at any level, I know we're focused on master's education, but what folks experiences. We have an emergency fund system where students can go to the university for some help. We do what we can, but again, resources are limited. So I just wondered how anybody is, if that's also confronting others and what some solutions have been to financial insecurity, which contributes, of course, to mental health.
We have a pantry that we started at Temple 3 or 4 years ago. They call it the Cherry Pantry because our colors are cherry and white. So every week, if you have a TU ID, a Temple University ID card, a certain number of credits is on your card. And you can go once a week. And I think, for example, if there are 10 credits on your card, you could easily buy 1 week's grocery supplies. And it's not guaranteed that you'll get fresh green groceries, but you'd be able to buy, canned goods and buy for free. Essentially, you swipe your card and you can take 10 credits worth of stuff for that week and then re-up again the next week. And I think some toiletries are just free. You can just take one per person. Those items, those are not even charged to your card. So essentially the whole system is free based on donations. But that's to combat food insecurity, which is very, very common among particularly graduate students.
Here at the U, we have food pantry, we have emergency funds for graduate students, we have the BIT, we have a lot of those more challenging things that have been set in place, but the housing is a real crisis here. Our housing and rental is more than most people's mortgages at this rate. It has been so high, and just in the last few years, it's just been growing. So what we're seeing here, at least at ours, and I think this is where I'm like, well, how do we get this? How do we do this on a bigger sense? So our dean of our graduate school is very active both in our Senate and then also pitching out to even our president to pitch to then our legislation to increase state funding and to really increase stipend and support for our graduate students, because at the current rate, even though we're probably higher than the national average in graduate stipend, it's not even like cost of living coverage. They did some quick, back the napkin type calculations, and it was $100 a week after, housing and major utilities. So $100, yeah, you could probably live on that. But if you have one thing that goes bad that week, like you have to go to the ER, even with insurance that we provide, there's your copay. So now it's go to the ER or eat. And that is the life that our graduate students, those that are funded, have to decide. And like yours, Jerry, almost all of our students in our PMST program are paid completely out of pocket. So I actually don't have any clue, or probably not a good representation of or indication of where they are in that crisis field. Are they, you know, one day away from crisis, or have they been saving up? But it is definitely a huge issue. And the only thing I would encourage is to keep talking to those who have that direct line to those higher administrators, to bring it as an issue to your school, your academic senate, to those who work with the state funding allocations every year if you're a state funded school.
Yeah, so Rutgers has a union. So all of our TAs, graduate students are in the faculty union, and that's a big topic for the union, trying to get their salaries increased and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's a good avenue to kind of advocate through that. So
Definitely.
The danger in this problem is that inflation happens quickly, and universities make things happen at a glacial pace. And so all of a sudden, like I know in Massachusetts, at the beginning of the year, electricity rates went up by 60% and natural gas went up by 40%. And that's in the same kind of issue as everyone's saying, rents are getting out of control, and graduate students are probably very, very squeezed, and schools are, oh, well, maybe we'll look at, you know, TA stipends for the 2024 or 2025. I'm not saying that's what our school is doing, but that's kind of that. It's the different rates at which schools react to this stuff compared to how quickly it happens. So Megan, I wholeheartedly agree that it's talking to the top level administrators to make them aware that students can get squeezed quickly.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so NC State, I mean, we have a food pantry as well, but we as a department, which we're a fairly small department, have taken it upon ourselves to create our own food pantry for our students, our undergrads and graduate students. And, you know, we have the option to bring food, we have the option to buy gift cards. And I know even our graduate student coordinator, we were talking, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, yeah, I'm not going to reveal who, but yeah, one of your students, like I've been working with them. They've been coming in, they've been getting food from us. And, you know, I think to some extent, a lot of students just don't know that they have those options. And, you know, to Megan's point of like, do you pay for this medical bill or do you eat this week? And, you know, for me, it seemed, you know, it's like, I don't have to worry about those things, but our students really, you know, just need the most simple resources. And sometimes, like, if you can even do it at a departmental level, like that makes an impact.
Yeah, I was going to say, not to put our California colleague on the spot, but I will. Al, you know, I think we all saw the statewide California challenges over quite an extended period with graduate students. What was your experience like?
If we're talking about trying to make ends meet for graduate students, I think most of us are a little bit lucky in that probably 50 to 60% of our students are working students. So it's a little bit easier there. Several, then a big part of them are international, but we are struggling, and we are starting to hear complaints about tuition and fees and costs. And that's starting to build up a little bit.
Yeah. At the doctoral level, they were striking. I know that. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Can I mention one? Oh,
sorry. Go ahead, Kristen.
Super quick. Kind of a total shift of gears, and I can't remember if we've mentioned this in a previous meeting or not. But I know that our focus for these sessions has been on our students. But just a quick plug, what I'm seeing more actually this semester has been dealing with mental health issues of my faculty and staff, which makes it even harder to manage student issues, because then you've got students with issues in a class with a faculty member that has issues, and just compounds and compounds. So just want to mention that as a really big challenge as well to add to the list, I guess. Our own mental health.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. I think the focus on students is so intense that it's often the case that faculty, staff, administrators are overlooked with this kind of thing. But I think this, looking at the clock, this is a good time for us to segue into the wish list, because we're kind of talking about some of that stuff anyway. So I think we're going to look at doing a whiteboard where let's just brainstorm on a wish list for resources we would all like to have access to, mental health resources. So Megan, do you think
I'm trying, and for some reason it's not Yeesh. Open. Did it do
I
it?
think
Okay, hold on.
I think can do
Oh wait,
it.
I have. Oh my gosh.
I think I can do one.
Okay, I'm on a
Uh,
different computer, sorry. And apparently it's not set up. Do you know how to do it? You go down to share. Yep, there we go.
Yep. So let's collectively see if we can make a wish list for resources. And keep in mind, one of our goals is to have NPSMA make some resources available to you. And so if you haven't used this before, if you click on in the toolbar on the left, there's a text. You can do a text box, or you can click on a sticky note, and you can use those to write suggestions.
So Marcel, is this supposed to be a wish list that NPSMA as an organization can provide, or in general, just people wish?
I think we could do it more generally. And you know, what's your wish list? And then some of these might be things we can help with. Some maybe not. I like the creating best practice documents to share on a website.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Megan, sharing your grid.
My icebreakers, yeah.
And I think the mental health wellness statement, we can put something together. We can put together a few examples. I have one that I'm pretty happy with. It's not completely original. I took some of it as kind of a template from a WPI group and then customized it. The climate anxiety, Terry, is that something that's publicly available on the web?
Yes, it is, and I can provide, let me look it up.
That would be really nice, I think, for us to see. Mental health. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to post a link to Amazon. I think once we get, I'll put it in chat.
Perfect, thank you. Tips on avoiding burnout for faculty and students. That's a good one. Oh, wellness check opportunities for NPSMA members. That's a cool idea. We could have something like maybe an office hour with different members, different board members, open to all members. And then I think while we are thinking about this, I'm going to block off the bottom right, I think. And another topic that we wanted to brainstorm on is topics for 2022 Ask NPSMA sessions. So we do run a lot of these, and so ideas for topics are welcome. So if you have any ideas that you think would be particularly nice to see in 2023, bottom right would be really helpful. And while we're all brainstorming on this, you know, I do want to come back to Kristen's suggestion about keeping not just students in mind for this, faculty, staff, administrators. I saw some examples where some other, you know, one other mathematician in particular that I'm friends with was came down with COVID in the middle of the semester, and the solution was, okay, switch to everything to Zoom, all your classes and all your meetings, and we'll see you virtually for everything. And I think having, you know, for those of us who are involved at a level where people are reporting to us, it's important to keep in mind that we have to take care of those types of people too.
Mhm.
I remember thinking, if this person had just been told, take it easy, cancel the meetings that you have to, do you need people to cover your classes for a couple of days? This kind of stuff would have gone a really long way. I mean, we were all kind of learning during COVID as this stuff played out, but that's one of the lessons I really took from it.
Marcel, kind of along those lines, I just hired on 2 new staff members for our program, and I'm very happy to report that within their job description, I was able to get approved through our dean a couple hours each week just for mental health and well-being. So it's worked into their job description, so people don't have to feel guilty about taking a walk or going for a hike before coming into work, or if being mentally health and or stable, or to feeling like you got work-life balance means leaving early to go watch your kid's soccer game. Like, there's just, you don't have to ask, you just do it. So, but you won't get there unless you ask. So my encouragement is like, I just pitched it out there and my dean was really receptive. And right now with the conversation, the national conversation around mental health as a way to support our faculty and staff, why not? So that would be my encouragement to y'all as well.
That's amazing, Megan. I mean, I feel like my department, it's just kind of unstated, but I think that, you know, it's just kind of our overall mindset. But I will say for myself personally, last academic year, I took on my previous position as a program coordinator, and then I was also the interim director of the program. So essentially, I took on a director position, my old job. I taught for the first time independently. And I started that job in July, and it took till the following April for my department head to, like, I think everybody saw the cracks and they were like, are you okay? And I was like, no, nobody has asked me like what's going on. And, you know, his response was, but you seem so put together and, you know, everything's going fine. And it's like, well, yeah, like sometimes the most put together people are the ones that are just trying to check all the boxes.
So
I would encourage just
outcome?
ask your colleagues, you know, check in with them.
Were they able to hire another person for you, Megan? Or
Oh yeah, no, this year's great. No,
Okay.
I'm co-teaching. She's great. She's all about like student experiences and mental health. So no, we're good.
Oh, we're good.
I had the same
Sorry,
issue.
go ahead. Go ahead, Carrie.
Megan, and it hit during COVID. I was running 2 PSM programs. I was faculty. It was just me. I was also the academic success coach, the advisor for everything. And that's why I put up the topic of tips on avoiding burnout for both faculty and students, because we get hit with all of these different hats that we're supposed to be wearing, and it does lead to burnout. I was really close to looking for a change. But in the meantime, I got some good tips that helped get through that. But there's always people out there in those situations that we don't realize.
Well, I would think or I would say also for like younger faculty and instructors, yeah, again, it was my first year teaching on my own. It was not fun, but then when I started talking to people about it, they're like, "Oh, yeah, your first couple of years suck." It's like, oh, well, that would have been nice to know that I just wasn't like completely dropping the ball.
Well, this is a really nice list. So I think there's a lot of things that we can follow up on here. Talking about as well the Ask NPSMA topic ideas, inviting CGS and EdUSA. That's a great idea. Courses on professionalism. I think that's a topic that we could do. Assessments. This is a big one as well. And these are things that if you feel like you have expertise in one of these areas and would be interested in actually, running one of these Ask NPSMA. We try to organize these, but it's so helpful if somebody wants to come in and give a presentation, run a session. That would be more than welcome. And I'll my email address is here, so feel free to email me with for anything about Ask NPSMA. If you have other ideas that you'd like to see in topics for Ask NPSMA, or if you'd like to be involved, that would be fantastic.
Marcel and
Marcel, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Marcel and I have talked about how this kind of is we're kind of wrapping up Ask NPSMA in terms of the mental health topic. But we might come back to it maybe at next conference, depending on what we make in the meantime. But we didn't want Ask NPSMA just to be about this topic. There's enough information, we could probably figure something out, but that's not the point. So just so everyone's clear, the next NPSMA, Ask NPSMA will not be on this topic, but it looks like there's some really good ideas out there. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Seema.
I was just going to say, this has been a really good topic, an intro topic to invite Ramin and Jackie to. Ramin and Jackie have taken over my role in overseeing the programs at Temple, some of the programs at Temple. And I was strongly encouraging them to join, and some of the things that you folks have shared about burnout and tips to avoid it, and the multiple hats that you wear. They're experiencing all of that after their first semester in this position. So I'm very glad to welcome them. I wanted to introduce you to them, and I think this has been a great topic.
Well, thank you, Seema. Jackie, and Robin, welcome.
Welcome. It's it's good to be here. It's my first time being a part of this. It's really interesting listening to all your stories, and we certainly, I know I certainly have encountered some burnout. But this is our second semester actually being part of the management now, the coordinator. But it is certainly been interesting. To be honest, I'm still learning on the role right now. So every day you just encounter something new. But it's really rewarding. It is just meeting with the students and discussing, advising. You can see on their faces they're very genuine and very happy that you're there to support them and you're there for them, because you're, as you guys are probably aware, you get plenty of emails all the time. I feel like it's every 10 minutes or so, but it's really is a rewarding, and I'm grateful to be in the position, and it's really good to meet you guys as well.
Welcome, glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Jackie's she's my co-coordinator. think she's not there.
Well, just to keep an eye on it. We are at 5:02, at least East Coast time. I know some of you are not East Coast time, so you probably have meetings coming up. But thank you everyone for participating, and I look forward to seeing you at the next session.